Gold forecasts for the end of the year. Hi everyone and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by ainslie.com.au, the home of Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, Ainslie Wealth and the Gold and Silver Standard. Be sure to have a look. Today, welcome back Alex. Look, we're in the middle of geopolitical turmoil. Everything's going on at the moment. But what we decided to do today, or what Alex decided to do today, is say, let's just step back and look at gold because it's very interesting what's going on there. How are you going today, Alex?
I am going well and over watching the news.
Overwatching the news indeed, because there's so much going on. It makes it really difficult when you're bringing it back all the time to something like gold and saying, well, how is this going to impact? Because, we're always told, ignore the noise, focus on the trend or some of these things. But the noise has been certainly influencing the trend. Some of this noise is much louder than usual. It really is confusing. And I believe that's been really highlighted through some of these recent predictions for the end of the year. You've got some wild predictions there, really much higher, some even lower. What's going on? How do you explain this really divergent sort of prediction set that we're getting out of some of these market participants at the moment?
So we've pulled up Citigroup, JP Morgan, CBA and Australia and UBS and just looked at some of their forecasts, because Citigroup interestingly came out this week after the Israel-Iran conflict had erupted and said by the end of 2025 they're expecting gold at $3,000 per ounce. And even lower into 2026. So that's a huge drop from where we are. And when you compare it to where everyone else is, like, for example, JP Morgan last week lifted theirs by about 10%. So on their end of year, so they're now saying around 3,675 by the end of 2024 and going into up to $4,000. So to be nearly 50% different in forecasts at the end of the year now between all these market participants is starting to look a bit crazy. But if you read all their commentary is basically built around Citigroup thinks the world's going to be great by the end of the year, and JP Morgan is worried about tariffs, the Israel conflict and what that's going to do. So I think at the end of the day is nobody's got a crystal ball at this point in time, and everyone's just guessing what we're doing.
Okay, so bringing that together, you've got obviously those diverse opinions from the different participants, but then, as you mentioned, some are really thinking this is a global growth story, and we have seen growth continue, even though it's been somewhat limping along. We have seen growth continue even despite all of the geopolitics that's been going on. How do you think about that? Is the growth story, from your perspective, ultimately the driver here, or how? What's your view?
I mean, if you looked at, so last night the Fed set rates, didn't move, which everyone was expecting. A lot of people are saying Powell is just punishing Trump for tariffs because really some of the data is really weak. So their job market is sustaining. But the housing starts came out before the Fed last night. Their housing starts were down like 10%. So the data's not good. If you actually look at our labor figures today, although full-time jobs were strong, the participation rate in the last 3 months has been dropping. If you were to actually look at job numbers in Australia right now and set the participation rate where it was in January, our unemployment rate would have moved from 4.1 to 4.4%. So the participation rate, which is people wanting to work, is dropping. That is not a strong market. So I think a lot of the data coming out at the moment is not showing the growth and I think that's maybe what it is. I think, some banks go, yep, roses, look at this. Australia's unemployment's not rising. But are you looking at what's going on in the job numbers and housing starts? Like, having 10% down on housing starts in the US. I mean, that is crazy when the rate of immigration's been so high. It doesn't show a strong market at all.
And you raise that point quite often, that you have to factor in the other aspects of this. It's not the headline number, because you have to look at what's underneath that number that's actually driving it. For example, that immigration one that you mentioned is really important. If you've got a rate of immigration that's higher than the number of if you've got a 6% immigration rate, for example, and 4% house sale growth, well, where's the missing 2%?
Yep, they're on benefits or they're crowding into share houses and everyone's standard of living is dropping, which I think is what everyone's feeling and what is actually going on. So, yeah, no, I don't think it's all roses at the moment. I'd love it to be. But there's a lot of uncertainty. You know, I've got a daughter who is looking at university soon, and she's saying to me, well, what do I do? AI might take my job in a couple of years. So, you know, that disillusionment with what's going on in the labour market is affecting a lot of people. And I don't think it's feeding through in the numbers yet, but it will.
Yeah, and the lags on that are really important to understand. Absolutely. It's not, these impacts take time to play out. Thinking about golds, because obviously those projections were on the price of gold, but you've made the point before, and it's one that we've all made a number of times, that silver and platinum often react after gold's made its initial move. No one can deny that gold has made an initial move. It's much, much higher than it was 12 months ago. When you look at the sort of momentum that's been behind the recent moves, it's been up there. How are you thinking about some of those projections in terms of what it could mean for silver and even platinum?
Yeah, so, you know, if you look at silver, in the last 6 months, the gold to silver ratio has dropped from 106 to about 91. Like, it was a pretty sharp and rapid decrease over the last week. And in fact, I was saying to you before, I saw an article yesterday that silver and gold have never diverged for this long since about 2000. So it's been 5 days where silver's gone up and gold's gone down, and that's over the Israel-Iran war. So, I mean, it's crazy what's happened. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense. But in that, silver's now at 90 to 1. On average, I believe silver sits around 50 to 60 to 1 to the gold price. And in a bull market, it drops to 30 to 1. So there's a lot of room for silver to go up further, even if gold was to stay at this level, even if gold was to drop where Citigroup is saying they forecast it for the end of the year. And platinum the same. If you look at the 2008 to GFC, platinum, the reason we have platinum credit cards is because platinum was better than gold. It was more expensive, it was worth more, and it hasn't been for a long time. So again, that rapid climb indicates that it's still got more to go.
So to wrap this up, you've synthesized these forecasts. You've been looking at all of them together, trying to get that bigger picture view over all of it. How do you think, like your personal opinion, I suppose I'm asking here, of how this does end later in the year? Is it the case that the metals probably go up regardless because of the geopolitical aspect? Is it the growth coming in that could provide some wobbles? I mean, it's hard to say with precious metals too, because sometimes the wobbles are where gold shines most. Do you think we're overvalued? Do you think we're undervalued? How are you viewing gold here, and by extension, the silver and platinum you're talking about?
Well, silver and platinum I still think are undervalued. So that is a nothing for me. That's an easy one. Gold, do I think it is overvalued? No, because I believe that we have huge geopolitical war risk at the moment. And ultimately, what is probably holding it down is that all the data and all the central banks right now are saying, you know, nothing to see here, move on. Whereas a lot of the information and data, when you drill into it, is saying there's starting to show a lot of cracks. Even the way the US is spending, continues with these enormous deficits. If you've got central banks moving to gold, gold has to be underpriced in terms of US dollar.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because whenever we have this conversation, you can almost win the conversation regardless when you bring it back to what central banks are doing, because ultimately you want to be following them. They are taking a synthesis of all the information and going, we're still buying. And that's certainly the case at the moment.
But as well, if you've got governments spending at the rates they do and therefore creating inflation and therefore devaluing your dollar, gold is undervalued.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I think my personal take on that would be, even if you were worried about gold potentially being too high here, that it needs a pullback, however you want to think about it, silver, as you said, it's a no-brainer. It doesn't make any sense that is overvalued where it is here. I think that's pretty clear looking at any sort of time frame on the graph there. So, yeah, if you are risk averse on gold, silver's sitting there that can easily step in to take its place.
Definitely silver and platinum over the last 2 months have picked up significantly in sales compared to gold. So there's a lot of people I think are starting to recognize that as well. So, gold is easy. It's an easier metal to work with. It's an easier metal to sell. But silver and platinum, if you believe in all these risks in the world, they're an easy investment right now, I would have thought.
An easy investment right now. I love that. Look, thank you so much, Alex. We always appreciate you. We always appreciate you digging into all of these geopolitical topics, but also just coming every so often and talking to us about the metals and how they're interacting. I think it really helps to give us some perspective. So you always know what you're talking about. We value that highly. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my crystal ball is the same as everyone else's crystal ball, though.
I don't know. I think yours is. You might have the next model up to mine, I think, but we always appreciate it regardless. So thank you everyone for watching. We'll chat again soon.